This church started in the year 2001. Not very many of you were here at that time. I thought you might like to know just a brief little history. In 2003, that was our congregation. That was the size of our church. And that size acquired 30 acres. We were meeting in the living room of the parsonage. It was a congregational meeting. They were all there because we didn't have this building. And so in 2003, a decision was finally made after a lot of conversation on how this building that you're in would look. And believe me, the first understanding of how this would be is completely different to what you have now. The first version had a basement. Well, we don't have a basement because we couldn't afford to dig a hole after we built this. We were supposed to have a lot of glass. We wanted the roof to look like it was levitating above the building, and well, steel got real expensive. Glass got expensive. Said, well, we'll just put the roof on. And so always the idea is usually much bigger than the reality. And so that was the case. So we had to gather around. It was another one of those come to Jesus time, and we got to get out of the movie theater. And we knew that we had three needs in the building of this church that related to our mission. We need to have a place to worship, so we wanted to get out of the movie theater. We needed to have a place to where there could be Christian education, because one of our missions is to be about what Jesus taught to do, so Christian education. And then one of the hallmarks of the congregational way is fellowship, a place that would nurture and foster ways to where we could get to know each other and have times of fellowship. So when we met in 2003, option one in property was done. And it was a glorious day, but the congregational process doesn't end there. We had other meetings. Here we are outside the parsonage. There's boards with samples of color and building materials. We met outside the congregation. They were raising their hands. Well, what do you think of this? So there was a process that we had. It's part of the congregational way. It's long, laborious, probably not very efficient, but it's done to where everyone needs to buy in and say, this is right. So we celebrated in 2005. We finally got in here. All right, 2005. Well, we knew all the way back then we needed to do more. And the time, we had ideas. There's been building committees. There's been study committees. We've looked at that for some time over a number of years. And a person who was instrumental in that is Bob Hawkins. Bob has been working with us to kind of find some ways that we can realize those other building needs so the mission of this church could be realized. And he's revised some ideas. And I want to introduce Bob, and he's going to introduce you to Gordy, who's helped him. And I'm going to let him walk you through some thoughts that would address those property needs of the church. Bob, come on up, and Gordy.
Good morning. As Lonnie said, he wanted me to come up here and kind of introduce our group and tell you a little about who we are and what we do. So I'll start with me, Bob Hawkins. Joyce and I have been members of the church for 12 years. In my life, I spent 50 years in the architectural engineering, developing, and construction business. Last 13 years, I was Chief Operating Officer of the Bentley Company. And Gordy Corrus, we've known each other and worked together for 25 years. Gordy led our religious studio at the Bentley Company. And during that time, Gordy probably did 65 to 70 church facilities in the state of Wisconsin. By far more than many contractors have done in their lifetime. And we just got together. Gordy was gracious to say, I'm in, I'll help you any way I can. And so we started looking at the planning and the budgeting that would have to be done to figure out, is this possible? Does it make any sense? And so what Gordy and I did is put 3 slides together. And basically what we did is, the first slide is it's kind of an aerial 3D exterior look. And what we wanted to do was make sure we took the architectural elements of this building and transfer it to that, so this building addition would not look like an addition, it looked like it's part of the original church. And then from there, it's a 2-story facility. The walkout lower level would go to the lower parking lot. And one side benefit will be we are really stretched for handicap parking. We would eliminate that because we could add a whole bunch of parking down there. You walk in the building to take the elevator up to the narthex. On this first, go back one, there you go. On the lower level, this would be our Sunday school classrooms and what we'd call support rooms besides. The upper floor would be then an enlargement of our kitchen, which we really need, it's very small, and a nice fellowship hall with support spaces around that. Both levels are about 4,000 square feet, so the total addition would be 8,000 square feet. Anything I'm missing, Gordy?
No, sounds wonderful. The only thing I can think of is the construction type and materials will be very similar to what you have here. It's not going to turn into an addition, as Bob said. It will be an extension of what you have here. And over all the projects that I did, that was one of the most important items, was to build whatever you were building. We did churches, schools, gymnasiums, additions, kitchens, daycare, that it fit with the ministry needs, but that it really fit with the building program and the facility that was here. And one of the most positive elements that came out of all of my discussions with all of the jobs was we didn't need a facility that was going to need to be maintained by guess who. It had to be very self-sufficient. It had to be in materials that don't need to be touched for 20 or 30 years. You don't spend a lot of money on the facility after it's up. So my goal in all my projects was the longevity, the ease of operation, and just common sense use of the best space that you could possibly put together.
And the only other thing I got to add, because he makes me tell it every time, he's built the largest church in Wisconsin. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Having said that, it's just a thought. It addresses the space needs, but what we need to do is what we did before, and that is as a congregation to get together and share ideas and dreams and thoughts of how the next building project needs to look. And so we have scheduled 6 small group gatherings to where we can do just that. It's in those events to where we want to talk about the details of the building. We want to hear from you of things that may be absent or other ideas. So we want to encourage you, if you've not done so already, to sign up for one of those small group discussions. I'll be sharing a little more about the history of this church and its construction, and there will be an opportunity for you just to chime in with some of your ideas and your thoughts about that. We have at different days of the week, different times, and for those of you who are online and you're unable to be here, there is a Zoom meeting scheduled as well where we would be doing that. Not only do we have the 6 small groups together to formulate a congregational discussion, we're larger than the group that met in the parsonage living room, so we have to break it up. But there's also, it's a task of the accountability team, where part of what they'll be doing now is Mary Beth leads that. All of our team leaders are involved, and the discussion there is what kinds of space needs do we need to have in place so our teams can be more effective in their task in applying the mission of the church. So we're having a big congregational conversation, and then at some point we will want to gather together and say, what do we feel we want to do with this? So I want to thank you all for that. Now, as you go for Donuts for Missions, as you come there, you'll see there's the clipboards to sign up. We want to encourage you to sign up. Connie will be there. All of the materials that you saw have been printed up, and you'll be able to have them to take home with you. And just to kind of get another idea as to what the conceptual ideas that Bob and Gordy have come up with. I'm so glad you guys are retired because we could never afford you if you weren't retired. Now you're retired and you can do the Lord's work, and we are all blessed in that. Would you please stand and let us continue our worship as we sing together, "Guide Me, O Thou, Great Jehovah."